Hi guys, I hope you're good. We're now having a look at Nasdaq 100 and we're gonna start off this analysis on the monthly chart. And on this particular chart, we can see that currently the market has created what seems to be a W structure at this point over here, right? With the side being the second leg of that W structure. And we can also see that the neckline of this particular W structure is around this level over here, right? And you guys know that when it comes to these particular structures, we want to see in the future price breaking to the upside of that neckline, coming back to the neckline to test it, and at this point is where we would look for potential buying opportunities, right? So just also keep in mind that the neckline, which is over here of this W structure, is also a very strong level of resistance at this point in time. And as much as we would love to see price breaking to the upside of that neckline, what may potentially happen is that price may in the future bounce off of this level over here only to push further down, right? Another reason why the market may push further down is that we have this W structure over here, and you guys know that whenever we have these structures, a lot of traders and investors usually buy on the second leg of the W structure and they place their stop losses just below the structure, right? So there's a lot of money sitting in and around this area, and it actually makes sense for the market to push further down to grab all of these stop losses that are sitting at this point and then perhaps only push further up. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we head down to the smaller time frames. Anyway, let's proceed. What else do we see, guys, on the monthly chart that we should be paying attention to? At this point, I don't see much really. So what I'm going to do is head down to the weekly chart rather. And here we are on the weekly chart. And just to recap a bit, remember on the monthly chart we spoke about how we have this W structure, but we can see on this weekly chart we can see that the structure has expressed itself as a head and shoulders pattern, with this side being the left shoulder, this side being the head, and this point over here being the right hand shoulder, right? And we could say that the neckline is at that point, more or less. To add to that, guys, as much as we have this very big inverted head and shoulders pattern, just also bear in mind that we have a smaller W structure at this point, which similarly has a neckline more or less at that point, right? And just like with that bigger W structure that I spoke about on the monthly chart, as much as we would love to see price pushing and breaking to the upside of that neckline, which is over here, what may possibly happen is that the market may actually push down, right? And that is because, as I said, guys, we have a lot of stop losses that are sitting at this point because a lot of traders and investors actually bought on the second leg of this W structure, placing their stop losses just below here. Another reason why I say that the market has to at some point actually push further down is that we have this candlestick over here. On the lower time frames, we will see that it's actually carrying a lot of liquidity at the bottom, and that's another reason in terms of why the market may possibly push further down to grab some liquidity, right? So let me just actually add a neckline for that smaller W structure. I just hope what I'm saying makes sense, guys, and it's not too confusing. But nonetheless, let's continue. So we could say that more or less that's our neckline of this smaller W structure, and it's also a very strong level of resistance. And as I said, guys, it is also quite possible that the market from where it is may push further down to around these levels over here to grab all of those stop losses, right? Anyway, let's proceed, guys. So what else do we see, guys, in regards to the weekly chart? At this point, I really don't see much, so let's head down to the daily chart. And here we are on the daily chart. I'm just gonna adjust my neckline of this W structure, and the next thing that I'm going to do is to add my daily channel as well. So just bear with me, guys, while I do so. Let's have a look. Let's see. Let's have a look. Let's see. Just remember, guys, and I know I say this quite a lot, and that's that we need to ensure that our drawings are accurate, just to ensure that ultimately when we do execute, we also make sure that our execution is good and excellent. Anyway, let's proceed, right? Just to recap, guys, remember on the bigger time frames we spoke about how we have this W structure, which has a neckline at that point, and we said that currently the market is testing the neckline of this W structure, and that it is also quite possible that we might see price push further down, right? So anyway, let's zoom in. What else do we see, guys, in regards to the daily chart? Another thing that I see that is also very much important is the fact that we have this candlestick over here, which is a liquidity candlestick, and where it ends at the top, it is carrying a lot of liquidity. And by now, you guys know that liquidity represents money that needs to be triggered by the market at some point, right? So I'm just gonna mark that level actually, which is over here, we could say, right? There we go, more or less. So yeah, there we go. What else do we see, guys? What else do we see that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I see is that as much as we have this big W structure over here, we also have another W structure at this point, which also confirms that we have a lot of stop losses that are sitting at this point, and that is because more buyers and investors bought on the second leg of that W structure, right? Anyway, I don't see much really at this point in as far as the daily chart goes, so I'm just gonna head down to the H4 chart. Let's see on the H4 chart. I'm just gonna adjust my channel. Just bear with me, guys, while I do so. Let's see. There we go, more or less. There we go. There goes my channel. And the first thing that I'm going to do in regards to the H4 chart is to add my H4 channel as well. Let's have a look. And it is quite a steep channel, as you guys can see. And I usually say that I actually don't like steep channels, and that is because they are easily broken. And it looks like in the next coming days we will see a retracement of sorts to the bottom side. Nonetheless, let's continue. Let me just fix this over here. There we go, there we go, there we go. Right, so what else do we see, guys, in regards to the H4 chart of Nasdaq 100? Let's have a look. Let me just zoom in a bit. What else do we see? Remember, just to recap, guys, price currently is at a very strong level of resistance, and this level at the same time is the neckline of that huge W structure that I spoke about, and it is quite possible that we might get a retracement of sorts, right? But nonetheless, we need to ensure that we find confirmations before we actually sell, right? Anyway, let's proceed. What else do we see, guys, now that we are on the H4 chart? On the H4 chart, I can see that we also had at this level an inverted head and shoulders pattern at that point, which has more or less a neckline at that point. We saw price breaking to the upside of that neckline, and then at this point coming back to the neckline to test it, and then pushing further up, which makes this level over here a very strong level of support at this point. And we might potentially see price push down to this level to test this area, and at this area we might again possibly see the market pushing further up or even further down to those levels that I spoke about at the bottom that are carrying all of that liquidity that I spoke about, right? But in as far as buying or selling at this point, I really don't see any opportunities. Just bear in mind that I also spoke about this candlestick over here on the daily chart, which is a liquidity candlestick which is carrying liquidity at that level, right? Just keep that in mind. And it is also quite possible that we might actually see the market push further up to around that level to trigger that liquidity, only to push further down to around this level at the very least. And that is because we have at this point an inverted head and shoulders pattern, and to add to that, the neckline of that inverted head and shoulders pattern is now a very strong level of support, right? So you might possibly see price push further down to around that point, right? So I just hope what I'm saying, guys, makes sense. But as I said, as far as buying or selling at this point, I really don't see any opportunities. Nonetheless, that's my analysis, and peace out.